Welcome to The How of Business with your host, Henry Lopez, the podcast that helps you start, run, and grow your small business. And now, here is your host.
Welcome to this episode of The How of Business. This is Henry Lopez. My guest today is Walid Azami. Walid, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Henry. I'm excited to be here.
Sure. So am I. I'm excited to hear your story. Walid is going to share his experiences as a professional photographer, including overcoming the challenges of being an immigrant to nonetheless build a highly successful creative business. So if you're a creative artist, like a photographer, a videographer, a makeup artist, a hairstylist, really any type of creative content creator, or for that matter, any business where you're turning your creative passion into a business, then I think this episode will be valuable for you. But beyond that, even if that's not the particular type of business, as Walid and I were chatting before we started recording, really every business has a creative component too. I think we're all creating something that we put out there into the market, and hopefully people will respond. So certainly I think you'll find this episode interesting, regardless of the type of business that you're looking to start or currently have, because of what Walid is going to share as far as his journey, his perseverance, and the inspiration that we can all gain from that. To receive more information about the How of Business, including the show notes page for this episode and how you can continue to support my show and receive exclusive content and discounts through a Patreon membership, please visit thehowofbusiness.com. Let me tell you a little bit more about Walid. Walid Azami is a professional photographer and commercial, sometimes even including music videos, also a commercial director in the Los Angeles area. He is originally from Kabul, Afghanistan. He's highly acclaimed, or his highly acclaimed work rather, includes the cover of Rolling Stone magazine Italia, and he has worked with people like Bob Proctor, Bernie Sanders, Usher, Perry Farrell, Mariah Carey, Kanye West, and Madonna, just to name a few. As Walid summarizes it, quote, "I help people and companies tell their stories the right way through creative direction, photos, and videos," end quote. Walid has also helped thousands of other photographers, videographers, and other creatives by teaching them how to build the business from scratch, by challenging them in part to get into their genius zone and to thrive. As I mentioned, Walid lives in the Los Angeles, California area. Walid Azami, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Henry. That makes me, when you hear somebody else say all of that, I just thought, wow, I'm tired. I've done so much. But thank you. It was good to hear all that.
My pleasure. Thanks for being with me. So I thought we start, from the early days, and just briefly, I myself am a son of Cuban immigrants, although I was born in the States. So I can relate, obviously, as a lot of us can in the United States, to the immigrant experience. But tell me briefly about that story about immigrating to the U.S.
Sure. And not that it really matters in the story or the experience, but I'm actually a refugee. So the only difference is that our lives depended on it, so we had to seek refuge.
Right.
I guess on the scale of a hierarchy, then refugees below immigrants, because we were just running for our lives. But
Right.
My experience, I came in rather earlier. I was almost 5.5 or 6.
Yeah.
And our family split up in multiple units because, getting out of if you recall, well, first of all, Ukraine is happening right now. So we see
Right.
what the war with Russia is, because that's exactly what Afghanistan was. And then America's, just to get political for a tiny, tiny second, is that America is helping Ukraine, but really for its own benefit.
Of course, but that's what countries do, right? We protect our interests. Yeah.
Exactly, especially this great nation. Maybe because we're so big, it just makes a bigger splash. But so we had that turmoil. So we broke the family up into multiple units and got out of Afghanistan. We were very, very fortunate. Whether it was, listen, I have a good 35 cousins here now, and so lots of aunts and uncles. Some of us were snuck. One cousin, he wins the prize. He was snuck inside of a duffel bag as a newborn baby on an airplane by a stewardess. Yeah.
Jeez.
By my aunt saying, just get my son out of here. My brother, my uncle, her brother is in Germany. He will get the baby. Just get the baby out of this country. To my brother and dad, my brother was born with a heart condition. So he went under, and I'm using air quotes now, a fake surgery in Germany. Same uncle. That uncle was quite the mover.
Yeah.
So they went under like a fake doctor's note saying he needs emergency surgery. We'll be right back. And then obviously the plan was to not come right back. So my mom had to report my dad as someone who kidnapped her oldest son so that we weren't punished for it. And then my mom was a school principal first. She was a teacher, school principal. Then she brought herself back down to being a teacher because it was just too high profile of a job for a woman at that time. And keep in mind, like in Afghanistan and all that. And so she would put the equivalent probably today, equivalent of $30 to $40 here or there, because you couldn't really save for an escape, right? Because they're watching everything. So she would put a little bit here or there in under the rug or under a pillow. Don't know exactly where she kept it. And then she hired kidnappers to kidnap us out of the country.
Wow. When you think back to all of that, and I'm sure we could talk, well, I know we could talk for hours about these experiences. Just bring it forward now. How has all of that experience impacted your perspective on business?
So I said this recently in another interview. My mom and dad and aunts and uncles and everyone did not put their lives and their children's life at risk for me to undercharge and not charge my rate. That's
or really to underachieve, right? Is that fair?
To underachieve. It's an embarrassment. We landed in America, of all places, the land of opportunity. And for me to do anything less than the best is so disrespectful to everything. So that's how it's helped me.
Does that, I imagine that's got to manifest itself in that, okay, it might be hard. I might get rejected. I may have imposter syndrome, but the heck with all of that, I'm still moving forward. Is that fair?
That's very fair to say. I mean, really, at the end of the day, emotions aren't currency. So get up and do it. No one cares. Yeah.
That's the no nonsense reality of what you experienced. And it's a perspective as well, right? For me to worry about whether I'm going to get rejected or the market might reject what I'm offering, especially from a creative perspective, pales in comparison to what your family went through to get you here.
Sure. Yeah. But that's the beauty of this nation is, I have my critiques of it, but overall, everybody has a story that can relate to at least part of my story.
Good point.
We're here. Like you said, you're originally from Cuba, correct?
Well, my family is. I was born in the States, but my family immigrated when Castro took over. So they were refugees.
Right. So it's everyone shares a similar story. I think that's kind of beautiful.
That is what makes this country in part beautiful.
Yeah.
When did you develop a passion for photography?
So, Henry, I had no idea.
Really?
And I think this is important for me to say to your audience is that, I think that when we're growing up, they sell you this fantasy that you should know what your dream job is, right? Do you remember like writing essays in school saying, and it was always 5 jobs. It was engineer, somehow astronaut made it in there, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, God knows, a baseball player, and something like that. And so I didn't know that I want to do something creative at all. In fact, I was lost. And then I went through elementary, high school and everything. I always had a creative brain, but this is the crazy part is that I was made fun of a lot for just having crazy ideas. But God, that stuff makes me money now.
But it didn't conform because the education system really, I talk about this often on the show, is about creating employees, right? It's about creating people that'll work for someone else, that'll plug in somewhere. And creativity gets squeezed out of us, I believe.
I think it gets squeezed out so fast. And and especially like I grew up in Anaheim, California, but I call it the Anna crime part of Anaheim. But it was sometimes. And so our school, they turn you into employees, and then we would get the Army coming in and saying, sign up for this, but they would never go to Newport Beach. They wouldn't set foot at Newport Beach High School or Laguna Beach or things like that, right? And so I think they take out creativity. They take out the arts out of schools all the time.
That's right.
But I also think something about our system here in the West, it squeezes out your instincts. And that is one of the biggest. We kill our instincts faster than any culture on this planet.
Yeah.
It's
You talked
unbelievable.
about that. You've talked about it in other shows that you've been on, but let
Yeah.
me ask you how your definition of instincts, because one definition is that our instincts develop over time based on experiences. You know, Malcolm Gladwell famously talked about that in the book Blink. What are you talking about when you're talking about instincts?
I think instincts to me is doesn't matter if you believe in God or which God, or if you don't, and you believe in something bigger than you, energy, Mother Nature, universe. It's not about judgment, but you believe that there is something bigger than you that's guiding you through this life. And I think actually, if I'll even go as far as saying human beings are the only living creatures. And I said this with Pat Flynn on stage at Flynn Con, and I know he was a recent guest of yours.
Yes, he
I
was.
said, he's great, and I had said the human beings are the only living creatures on the face of this planet that teach their children to kill their instincts in an attempt to fit in, to not go against the grain, to make life easier. It's out of love, but we teach them to be a good girl and be quiet. Be a good boy and don't cry. Don't show your emotions. And so when you think about it, when you think about, animals have fight or flight, and no matter what country you're from, no matter how wealthy or unwealthy you are, and skin color and religion, anything, one of the first three words most human beings learn is no, respectively to their culture, whatever that word may be.
Sure.
And so we are told no so much. No, don't cry. No, don't do this. No, don't do that. And so eventually it just kills you, and it kills your creativity. And I think that in business, I bring that up in so much in my business podcast visits when, people are kind enough to let me on, is that without instincts, I feel like you're like a jet, an airliner jet running on one engine.
Yeah.
It's a rough flight, not going to be a far flight. And that's it. So I don't know if that's different than what you described, but that to me is instant. It's a direct phone call from you to a higher power, whatever your higher power is. And that phone call, that gut feeling is going to tell you, take this deal. Don't take this deal no matter how enticing the numbers are. Call this friend right now. Call your kid at home. And then you call and you're like, Mom, I got hurt because I touched a stove and it was hot. And it's like, nah, that mother's intuition is real. Or don't get in this car right now. When you find out later on there was a car wreck, and you do the calculations and you think, my God, I could have been right there at that moment.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion of instincts.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I think it can manifest itself in a couple different ways. First of all, on this whole point of creativity and the stifling of it, you and I were chatting about this as well before I started recording. Any business, I mentioned it at the outset, rather, any business that we create is an expression of us. It is a creation of ours. And so
Correct.
I think that that's one of the things that holds people back from going into business, is that fear of that idea, that creation being rejected.
Yes.
And in
So
part because we don't have any
rejected.
practice doing it. So we're rejected. Exactly. So we take it personally. Yeah. When did you pick up the camera for the first time?
Well, let me try to abbreviate this. That's not a gift I have in life. I worked with Madonna, and you name it, and I did it. And
Before
and I
you
was very
were
well aware.
before you were a photographer.
Yeah. I had I would say I wouldn't say every immigrant family, but I swear to God, everyone does it, where your parents at some point say, cousin so and so's in med school. Look at you, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That comparison. And I had taken in my bachelor's degrees took me, and I'm really open about my quote unquote failures, because I hope that it tells someone you're doing fine, keep going. But my bachelor's took me 7 years. 7 years, like how pathetic is that? But that was my voyage that I was on. And I
Mm-hmm.
kept buying time, and I kept doing everything I could to face the real world subconsciously, right? And the reason why I even finished it in 7 years and not 8 or 9 years, Henry, is because I was a history major, and I really, really grew to love history on accident. But I took a class, Dr. Reedfield, he really inspired me. But what had happened was, at Cal State Fullerton in Southern California, I think they charged about $30 to $35 every time you wanted to change your major. I didn't change it the final time. I was business, I was communications, I was media, I feel like I was film and TV, I was everything. But I didn't have $35 to change it. So I just decided, you know what, let me just finish this out and get my history degree. But I so I finished that. I didn't know what I wanted to do. My mom and dad said, "What are you doing? You're wasting your life." And I said, "Maybe I'll be a high school teacher." And the teaching credential program lost my application. God bless that person who
Thank
did
goodness
it,
for
because
you.
it bought me another semester of time. I pray for this person, don't even know who it was, because no one would fess up to doing it, right?
Mm.
But I got an internship at Madonna's film company, Maverick Films, not
Okay.
very successful, nothing like her music career. And then I got the attention of her office and her then manager's attention as the one that worked really hard. And
Well, what kind of work were you doing at that point when you first joined them? What kind of work?
oh, good question. I always skip over Henry. It was hell. Okay, we had to read scripts. And when you read scripts, I would say it's 99 of them are horrible. One is okay enough to maybe mention to your higher up. And then I would say out of every 500 to 800 of them, there's one that makes its way through the development program, then to the VP, then to the CEO, then gets optioned as a movie. So we were looking for movies.
And why were you qualified to
I was
play that
not.
role? Okay.
I was not at all.
Why
They
did
just
they
had,
hire you for it?
well, it was an internship, right? And
I see.
it was a herd of interns. And I say herd because that's how we were treated. And um, and I remember just thinking, God, this sucks. But I would just I had a system in place that had, okay, I'll just say it. This is true immigrant behavior, like what we had to do. I knew that what they need to do was just keep us busy, and they were not really interested in our development. So that, let's put that to the side for a sec.
Sure.
I also knew that there were people throughout the United States that did not intend on ever coming to Los Angeles or New York City, and they just wanted something. They just wanted their communications degree, and they just had to intern for one semester. So I put out an ad on Craigslist. Okay. And I looked for an intern to read scripts, and I would use the FedEx account and ship them scripts, and then they would do it. And so in exchange, what it was is they got a letter saying they completed their internship. That's all they wanted. And then I would turn those in. It's a gray area
But you
of
did this
honest.
on your own. They didn't tell you to do this. You figured this leveraged model out on your own.
Correct. And everyone would say, Walid, you're driving 2 hours a day from Anaheim to Beverly Hills, 2 hours there, 2 hours back. And how are you reading all this? I'm like, I don't
It
know.
must have been a paid internship, I'm assuming. You
It
were
was
getting paid.
unpaid.
Unpaid. So
Oh,
how were
no.
you affording to pay then the people? Oh, because that was unpaid internship as well. You were still leveraging it, but you weren't paying the interns you were bringing on.
It was exactly, it was unpaid. The exchange, I mean, the offer was, you're going to read scripts, you're going to write like a one-page bio on what it was, if it's worth reading into more, or is it dismissed. And then all they wanted was to finish their college credit. So I
Sure,
took
sure.
I took a letterhead, and I was like, John Smith was phenomenal, and give them what they needed. But in the process, I was able to start helping producers more and start researching and using my history degree.
I see.
And I started standing out as like the star intern. And then naturally they pulled me into the Madonna office.
Okay.
But you asked when I pick up the camera.
Yeah.
I learned a lot in the Madonna office. She was going on a world tour. She was doing she had a music video. She had a record. She had children's books coming out, and I got to experience a lot, and I got to see her working with the top across the board. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just want to do something creative. And I stayed with her for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I learned a lot more than you could ever learn in film school or MBA put together. And then I left because I realized I didn't want to be a manager. And I went through the process of elimination of, okay, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And what was remaining was getting smaller and smaller. But this was the beginning of the recession. My friend Jamie King, who's her tour director, called me out to dinner one night and basically give me the whole speech about following my instincts. And he said, you are nothing in this industry without it. And, that whole thing. And he's like, you have to listen to your instincts, no matter how crazy it is. If you think you should do, and I remember this exact example, if you think you want to do video and you want to paint everybody green because you get this weird gut feeling, do it. There is a higher power trying to make a direct phone call to you saying this is for your best interest. And my instinct said, buy a camera. But Henry, I didn't even know. And I spoke about this in length, actually on stage with Pat and another podcast, but I didn't even know that on a camera. The reason I'm going to such detail about this is because I want people that may not have the courage at the moment to start their business saying, what do I know? Who the hell do I think I am? To please take that chance and bet on yourself. But I didn't even know a camera lens could come off and you put a different lens.
But what did you know?
Nothing.
But not technically, but what did you know that instinctively led you to feel, or maybe it was just the instinct, but what did you consciously know that led you to think, I can do this?
I knew nothing. Nothing. I went blind into it. I just knew
why this and why not writing or something else? Why a visual expression?
Okay. I see the question. For about 2 weeks after that dinner, I had this weird feeling, this little tickle in my stomach, that I guess people call it butterflies, but this little weird tickle in my stomach that I should buy a camera, not buy a paintbrush, not buy a journal and a whole bunch of pens. It was a camera, and it was consistent. And I kept trying to shove it down and saying, no, this is crazy. You are barely working. You quit the Madonna office. You're trying to become a PA and you're trying to do some BTS video here or there. And I'm running out of money, Henry. But to the point that I almost was about to move back home, and something kept telling me for about 2 weeks to buy a camera. I used my very last credit card. My bank account was zero. I almost went into the other room, told April, my roommate then, that I have to move back home. I'm sorry, I have to leave you. I'm so sorry. I failed at everything. But I went and I bought a camera, and I had a $2,000 credit limit on that Citibank card, I remember. And I went foolishly not foolishly, it had to happen that way, but I went into the camera shop and I said, hi, I have $2,000 and I'd like to be a photographer. And they sold me everything. Like I had $1.50 left in credit.
Yeah, they took advantage of that. Good salesperson. This is Henry Lopez, briefly pausing this episode to invite you to join me for one of my next live online workshops. During these interactive workshops, I cover a specific topic that will help you with starting and growing your small business. Just visit thehowofbusiness.com to learn more and to register. If you need help creating an effective business plan, for example, to start your first small business, then my next business plan workshop may be just what you need. Or perhaps you need help completing your financial projections for your new business. Well, I have a workshop for that too. And if you're already operating your business, then you can probably benefit from learning how to better manage the cash in your business by attending my cash flow management online workshop. These are just a few of the workshops that I currently offer, and I keep these workshops to a small number of participants so that we have the time to answer all of your questions. Whether it's getting started with your first business or growing and exiting your existing small business, I can help you get there with one of my online workshops. To find out more and to register for a live online workshop, please visit thehowofbusiness.com. Take that next step today towards finally realizing your business ownership dreams. I look forward to having you join me for my next workshop. How long from when you buy the camera to you start making a living as a photographer? How long did that take?
Okay, so whoever's listening to this and you're driving, pull over because you're going to be upset. But I had, I would say I shot for about a week, leaves falling, my niece trying to walk, those things. I got a call about a week and a half later, somebody saying, hey, do you have a video camera? And I said, yeah, I actually have one. And they said, we just fired somebody, a videographer. Can you please come to the Kodak Theater now? We got your number from a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. And before I was about to close the door in my apartment, I got that really weird feeling again. And I was like, wait a minute, they don't know if I got hired for video. or video and photo. Gut feeling said grab the camera. I wrote on my little BlackBerry Curve, f-stop means this, exposure does this, and it's that button. ISO is this button on the far right, and it does that. That's how new I was. And they were like, oh, by the way, it's for Usher. And I went and I shot this thing like a machine gun, and every photo was horrific. And I went home incredibly depressed, and I was like, God, you're a bigger loser than, like, you know, when you think you hit bottom and then you're like, oh God, there's a lot more.
Yeah, there's more to go.
Now we're digging, and it's going for
forever. So did they use any of your photos?
Henry, they called me after 3 days because I just tried to hide from the world. And just to give perspective, I didn't even know I did not even know that there was such a thing as a Photoshop. No idea. Like, no idea at all. And I edited each photo inside. If you have a Mac, you know this, like what you open a PDF in the preview.
Sure.
And you could just do saturation, highlights, contrast, exposure. I edited every single photo in that. I, again, that's why I push so much on instincts, because once you tap into it, you get upset at yourself for not tapping into it earlier. I don't have a course to sell on instincts. I don't have a book. There's no gain for me. But just seeing other people do well, my instincts said, these are the worst photos in the history of man. They're blurry, they're grainy, they're out of focus. Like the foreground is blurry, the background is crisp. It like the ghost trails on images, all of that. And I had this really weird gut feeling that said, turn them all into black and white, because there are different colors of the rainbow practically, because light temperatures and all that, which I get all that stuff now. And Benny Medina, who's now Jennifer Lopez's manager, huge guy. He started Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He was Usher's manager at the time, and he called me directly, which he never does. And he said, Walid, I don't know what you did. I don't know how you figured it out, but these black and white avant-garde type of photos is exactly where Usher wants to be, and he's in love with these photos. And I only sent him like 12 to 14 pictures. He wants to know if you would like to be his personal photographer and go on tour with him. And that's how it started, Henry.
So were you lucky there, or did you have, even though untrained, an eye for composition, or a combination of both?
I think that's a very fair question, because I know that's why I said, I hope you all pulled over, because you'd be so upset. It was luck. Luck will open a door for you, but something has to keep you in the room.
Well, you have to put yourself in the way of luck to begin with, right? So if you don't show up, you don't get lucky.
True. I listened to my instincts. Like, I went on autopilot instincts that entire time. And that's why I mention it so much, because I do have to give credit to God, the universe, whatever, energy. And also, but I will say this, because I hope that this helps the listeners. From the day I said yes to, I would say, virtually still today, I don't allow myself to go to bed until I learn one new thing every single day. In fact, that line is on my daily planner. If I didn't learn something, I don't deserve to sleep. It could be simple, a tax code,
Okay, let's go back to then, though. So I don't know that I still got the time frame from when you got the camera.
Apologize.
To you get to Usher's team likes the photos. What time frame are we talking about there?
Let's just say 2 weeks.
Okay, crazy.
Yeah.
And then how long? Let's start with this. How were you able to then leverage that to get more clients?
So, okay, thank you for asking that question, because leverage is one of the biggest things that I believe in. I basically had that that set of photos with Usher. And
that was your portfolio. That was it at that point.
That was it. I had one other thing before that. When I left the Madonna office, I was expecting a nice gift. I really, really was, because they throw money around like, here's a $2,000 jacket, whatever. My gift was, God bless this woman. My gift was, she said, why don't you borrow a camera and you can film me on stage during rehearsals today. That was her gift. And I remember thinking, you frugal, and I remember, but I used different words.
Yeah.
You frugal.
And this is, who are we talking about here?
Madonna.
Madonna herself. Got it. Understood.
Yes. And
But there's some arrogance there. But she felt your opportunity to film her developing, practicing her craft was a gift to you.
the woman knows. Well, first of all, you don't become that. She arguably is overall the most famous human on the planet. She really is. And when you think about it, all different corners of the world, we know her more than anyone else.
Mhm.
And um, when you think about it, she knew her power, and her gift to me was the ability to continue hunting.
Mhm.
And so I
Well,
got
and
some jobs.
also you got to observe her creative process, right?
Correct. But for me to walk away with footage in a
Yeah,
highly
yeah,
high security area
right.
and to
That's huge.
say, so I got some jobs and people would look and I would just put the Madonna footage at the front
I
of
see.
a
I see.
non-existent portfolio. And people are like, is that Madonna? And I'm
Right.
like,
So
yeah. And they're
that
like,
alone was like, okay, let's talk.
you got the job.
Yeah.
And then with Usher photos, it was, hey, I did this for Madonna and Usher. And it was all about leverage. And then, oh my God, of course you can shoot. And then I take the third one if it was up to a certain level, and I kept leveraging that. And I think that everyone should do that.
Mhm.
Leverage
That's
is the game.
absolutely, and that's what you were able to do. But there's a common thread here, I think, Walid, that I'm hearing.
Is there?
As we go back to the immigrant story, and it's that there's a level of fearlessness. Yeah, you call it instinct, but there's also a level of fearlessness and not being afraid to put yourself out there, not just creatively,
Yeah.
but to go do it, right? And I think that has been, I am observing, part of your reason for success. What do you think about that?
That's really interesting, Henry. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. It's so interesting because I allow myself to look at myself a little bit and I'm like, but keep going. And maybe that's part of it too. But it is. It's a I could never pronounce this word. Is it naivety? What is it?
Nativity, right?
Naivety, yes. So some of it was that, and I'm like, I could do anything I want.
Right. You were not, were naive. You didn't know any better necessarily.
Oh yeah.
But most people, especially as we were talking about earlier, with how early in life our creativity gets stifled, you followed your instincts there. Of course, you put yourself in an environment that supported and rewarded creativity. So that was positive. So that was huge. But then, as we just said, you were able to leverage that opportunity to the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah, and I want people to really just hold on to that. And as far as like, you are correct. I think that my background of being a refugee in America does have something to do with that, because I look at my parents, I look at how tired they are. I look at at the time, their lack of retirement funds. I look at all that and I just think, and I have personally seen what it's like to not be in America. And I wish that there was a way that people who are born here could see what you could see it on TV, but to really truly feel it, you won't. Once you see where you're at, you will never take it for granted again. I really wish there was a way that we could see that.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree.
I look at that. I'm always reminded of that, of
Sure.
like what it could be. And I'm like, nope.
I think that one of the ways we are able to somewhat expose ourselves to that is with the right type of travel. It's not complete, because when we're there as a tourist, it's a different experience. But nonetheless, I think if we open ourselves up to experiencing other cultures and going to other countries, we see not only that we have it great, but also we also see that other countries have it great as well, right? Not every, so there's that balance. We see all of that. Okay, I want to ask a very tactical question here before we start to wrap it up, and that's on pricing. And you do a lot of work on helping people, creatives, with their pricing. Pricing is something, especially for creatives, is such a big challenge. In fact, you have a whole course on this, correct?
I do. So my course is predominantly for photographers and videographers, and it's called Step Pricing, Secret to Easy Photography Pricing. But one thing I realized, and I wish that I didn't go as much in length about my life and instincts and all that, and was able to give more tactical info. But pricing for me has been the same, because human psychology is the same. So whether you have a restaurant or you have a consulting business or photo or video, what have you, human psychology is the same. And pricing is not just about where you land strategically. It's about the psychology behind it. How does the client feel? How do you make them feel? What is your market value? So my step pricing course covers that. And I've used virtually like about 90% of my career, the same pricing method, whether it's a record label, whether it's an A-list star, whether it's a startup and a brand new business, and they have, no matter what size of budget, humans are all the same, no matter where we're from. So
give
I have
me
that
some of that
course.
takeaway. Give me at the high level, introduce that process. What are some of the key components there that I might
Sure.
learn from?
From the course or just my tips on pricing in
Just the
general?
tips on pricing, yeah.
Sure. Number one, you have to realize when someone refers you, they are putting their entire reputation on your performance. And so you have to make yourself a safe bet. And if you're not a safe bet, you're not going to get referred, you're not going to get hired, you're not going to grow your network. So sometimes, for example, if you are, let's say if you're a wardrobe stylist or a makeup artist, photo, video, what have you, um, I say niche down. There's this trend of people saying don't niche down, and I say don't believe that stuff. Niche down, because what people don't want to do, I guess in my case, is play photography roulette. Are we going to get this style or that style? This one or that one?
So are you talking about niching down as far as even a style or an approach
You,
or kind of
yes,
your aesthetic?
be the best at it where it's absolutely foolish of them to not go with you.
So give me
Foolish
an
of them.
example in photography, how, because I don't know photography,
Sure.
how would that manifest itself in photography? What would be niching down?
If you do food photography, then you do landscape, then you do newborn babies, and you do weddings, and you try to do some fashion, you are jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And you can't really claim a high price, because what happens is if an ad agency looks and says, we need a quick photographer for this event, they look and they see something very airy and ethereal for their newborn baby. But then they see something moody and sexier for the food. And they're like, and they get something for landscape and etc. And then they look and they're like, but which one are we going to get?
Yeah.
I can't take this risk because I'm going to end up looking foolish,
Right.
the person at the ad agency. But if
Right.
you can give them consistency and you have one or two styles that, I'm not saying don't photograph anything, but what you present to the public, and if you're dark and moody sexy here on that picture, they can look and go, this is exactly what we want or don't want, and then
It,
they're more likely to hire you.
it can seem counterintuitive, I can see, Walid, because
Yeah.
I can see where the instinct might be, go back to that word instinct, or the impression might be, or the advice might be, show a varied portfolio, right? But what you're saying, at least to get started, is to niche down and be very clear as to who you are and how you express yourself or how you let others express themselves. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, you are, except for the part, not just in the beginning, I'd say through the majority of your career.
Got it.
Once
I
you
see.
can
Not just at the beginning, but through the majority of the career. You
yeah, because
identify then as you are the expert instead of, because the person who does a little bit of everything is going to get paid like the average, but the expert in a particular type is going to get the premium.
you got it. It's, if you think about it like Walmart, Walmart is great. It's very profitable. If you're of that family and you have 800 of the stores, if there's 800 of you, but there's only one of you, you are more built to be a boutique, a high-end boutique. And so when you think about it, we go to Walmart, we don't, if we see a cake, for example, we don't expect to pay more than $14.95 for that cake because it's Walmart. And they have car tires and they have plants and clothes and everything. But if I was to go to a bakery and get a sheet cake, I expect to pay 60 to 80 bucks because they're so good at that. And I expect to pay a particular price, and I'm going there for that experience. So I would say niche down and be the best at it. So people come to you for what you do, and they have to come to you because going anywhere else is not the right choice. That's one pricing tip I would give.
Yeah.
Another one is the double thank yous. There's a book by Ron Baker, an author. He talks about this a lot. Whatever you do, whatever kind of business or service you have, if you don't get a double thank you, you are incorrectly priced or you don't have a good service. So what I mean by double thank you is this. So if you've ever had like let's just say you have a plumber come to your home and you're expecting $150, ends up being $900. When they give you the invoice and you give them your credit card, you don't say thank you like they say thank you. You don't feel good about that. And you're like, God, that sucked. I'm not going to just go back to that person again. But when you go to, like Ron Baker talks about it, when you go to a Starbucks and you pay $5 for overpriced coffee, they give you the coffee, you still think that they're priced enough there where you think, okay, that's a good deal and I'm getting a good perk for the day. Think about how you say thank you at a Starbucks. They give you they take the money from you and they say thank you, and you're like, thank you. It's so I would say look for the double thank you in business and pricing yourself. Should I continue or no? Or that's
Tell me also, one of the big challenges that I see to finish up on pricing is the hesitancy for people to raise their prices over time.
Yeah. Great question. So anyone that is listening to this, whatever you do, there is no one on this planet that can do it like you. Nobody. And even scientifically, we have different fingerprints. I cannot be you. So Henry, you and I are there. I give you my camera. You have the exact same camera. You stand in the exact same spot. I mark an X on the floor, same lighting, same model in front of us. And I say, all you have to do is push that button. You could never do what I can do. And I could never, ever, ever do what you can do. That's what makes us unique. And that's what people want to pay for. So you have to understand, and this has a second part to it. So you have to understand that you are not a vending machine. You're not a conveyor belt. You're truly an artist in what you do. And you have to charge for that. And when you charge low, you are stealing people's enjoyment. So, when I said, like I said, the bakery example, if you were to go to a high-end wedding, you want a high-end bakery and you want to get like a wedding cake, in a weird way, the human psychology is you want to pay a lot and you want to tell people, I got it from this bakery, everybody. Like, I was so excited to finally get something from there. But if you were to get a sheet cake from Walmart, you're not exactly bragging about it. So when you don't charge what you're truly worth, a one-of-a-kind creature, a one-of-a-kind artist, one-of-a-kind service, if you don't charge for that, you're actually robbing your clients of a happy experience. I swear by this. It's so counterintuitive. But you have that. And then also for the people that are so afraid to charge and so afraid to start their business, I'll go as far as saying it's incredibly selfish of you to not start. Because if you think about it, there's, how I said, Henry, like you and I could photograph the exact same situation, same gear, and we won't get the same output. There is somebody out there, whatever your service is, that is relying on you. Your truly unique, one-of-a-kind service, that touch that you give to your clients. And so I'll tell the photographers in my group, and I'll say, so there is somebody right now that is coming home on the week and working in the garage on the weekends, perfecting something. Let's just say recipes, and they're trying to figure something out. Or they put the kids to bed at night, and then, they now have a couple hours and they're trying to figure out this dream business. They don't want my photography, they want yours.
Right.
And for you to not put yourself out there is incredibly selfish, because you're the solution to someone's problem. So do it for other people, and other people will support you back. Okay. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I get it. Creative and in itself, and a very unique perspective. So thanks for sharing that.
Very opinionated I am.
You've got one. There's no doubt about that. That's a good thing, right? We all should have one. We all do have one. And it's to your point. We need to share that, our perspective, our point of view, especially when it comes to truly creative businesses.
Yeah.
We need to share that, right?
Please
all right.
Share it. Yeah.
We've talked about books. You mentioned the Double Thank You. Is there another book that comes to mind that you would recommend?
Yes, there are two books. Number one, a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap. Please take it. Please take a chance. Please take a big leap on your life. The second book is called Superfans, and it's someone like I mentioned earlier. You've interviewed Pat Flynn. He's actually written about me in that book, about what I'm doing with helping photographers. But it's about the importance of a small community and building a relationship with your fans and really recognizing how unique you are. Those two books.
Excellent. We'll have links to those books on the show notes page for this episode at thehowofbusiness.com. All right, we'll wrap it up, Walid. What's one thing you want us to take away from this conversation that we've had about building a creative business? What's one thing you want us to take away?
I was gonna say instincts, but I'm gonna go back to, I mean, that's understood. Understanding how truly unique you are, and that the creative world, we cannot do a single thing without your special talent. We cannot launch records, we cannot launch books and movies and TV shows, we cannot sell food at a restaurant, you cannot launch a multi-million, multi-billion dollar business if it wasn't for the creatives leading the pack. Please know your value, know that the advertising industry, the business world, everything relies on the creative people, their special gifts to just convey a message to the world in a way that no one else can. And when you really recognize your value, you'll start charging the value that you deserve.
Where do you want us to go online to learn more?
I am at walidazami.com or on Instagram at walid.azami. Yep.
Excellent. We'll have links to that again on the show notes page if you're not, where you can write that down. Walid, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for this interesting conversation. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone that listened, and I hope it inspires you a little bit.
This is Henry Lopez, and thanks for joining me on this episode of The How of Business. My guest today again was Walid Azami. I release new episodes every Monday morning. You can find the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and at my website, thehowofbusiness.com. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to The How of Business. For more information about our coaching programs, online courses, show notes pages, links, and other resources, please visit thehowofbusiness.com.